Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday evening, guys. Start of the week. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed yourself, had some time to be able to rest, recover, and relax. And also maybe see the eclipse. So I kind of looked outside. I noticed it got a little bit darker. That was about the extent of my eclipse watching experience. So if you got to experience the whole entire thing, let me know what your experience is because I basically missed it. All right. And also, we're still here, so it's not the end of the world. So tonight, I'm going to go over a really interesting topic, and it's called When Hunger is a Liar. Okay. So I'm going to tell you this: hunger can become a liar. I'm going to explain to you why and what you need to do in order to get your hunger under control. Very interesting topic. Because, guys, if you've heard of it, a lot of times they call, obesity as some kind of disease, but I'm going to help you see it from a little bit different perspective as far as why, as people have been struggling with obesity, not to throw shade at them, but to help them understand why that actually could be. And it has a lot to do with hormones and things like this. So, when can hunger become a liar? I'm going to show you during this live broadcast. So, make sure that you watch the whole thing, because if you watch the whole thing, it'll give you a good understanding of kind of where you need to start from as well. And if you are watching from Facebook or YouTube, or you're on the Rumble platform, make sure that you say hello and also let me know where you're watching from as well. I always love to see where people are watching from. I know that we have people from Alaska, Maryland, all over the place. So thank you guys so much. I'm honored that you would join me for tonight. Okay. So, when hunger can become a liar. Okay. Now, coming up, if you are from the Chicagoland area, Tuesday, April 23rd is our next inflammation talk. I know that we had one last Tuesday. It was awesome. It was incredible. So many people's eyes are just open up. They're like, wow, I love seeing things from a different perspective. But who is this specifically for? The in-person events are for people from the Chicagoland area who we can see in person. And I'm going to tell you this, my availability to see people in person is a lot more than seeing people online. And that's not necessarily a negative thing, but being into full-time practice again, my availability to see people remotely is significantly less. Okay. So this is why I always love seeing people face to face, because that helps out quite a bit. This is why I'm not a huge fan of telemedicine and things like that. Yes, we will do it if that's the only way that we can do it. However, seeing people in person has such a profound effect as well. Communication should truly happen in person. Um, and not via text and not via phone. It should be in person so you can actually see the person who's sitting in front of you as well. Now, don't forget, we also have our webinar. This is for people who only have the option of being remote, of me seeing them remotely. And this is if you are in the contiguous 48 states of the United States of America. Someone asked me, hey, do you see patients out of the country? I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't, for a lot of different reasons. Very tough to get the labs that they need, very tough to send them anything that they need to get sent. So it's just easy if you're within the contiguous 48 states, which takes out Hawaii, takes out Alaska. I will tell you this, is that there is a Wellness Way that's opening in Maui. Alaska, I'm not for sure yet. But if you are in with the contiguous 48 states and you want to work with us remotely, I'm going to be having a meeting with my staff because we may make this unavailable for the time being. So if you have been on the fence, now's the time to get to it, because this might not be here at the end of the week. Is go ahead and you can go and watch the inflammation webinar. Now, if you have that and you have an hour of your time, you'll see as you get towards the end of it, there's going to be a link that pops up that you can go and schedule a call with me, a discovery call. And we do everything electronically through that. And so you'll have the ability to be able to send me your past labs over the course of like a year or two, so we can see and fill out some things so I get a better understanding of what's going on, especially with your health. But this is for people who are in the contiguous 48 states only. Okay. And this, we might take this down at the end of the week, just as an FYI. Now, if you're watching on Instagram, if you're watching on Facebook, we'll put these on our social platforms. But I do have a new Linktree account. Okay. Now, what is Linktree? Linktree is just basically has all of our links that we want you to, because a lot of social media platforms, you can only put in like 1 or 2 links, but if you have more, then you're kind of out of luck. So Linktree is just one link, takes you there, and then it has all these links together. So I actually spent a lot of Friday making a brand new Linktree account. And here's the reason why, if you can believe this, okay? So I've had this up on my Instagram profile for years, and all of a sudden Instagram flagged it as having adult content. And here's the reason why that happened is because someone didn't like my message and kept reporting it over and over again. I didn't have any adult content on there. I'm not that desperate. I don't need that. But I just came up with a new one, and the links are going through. Everything works. So if you are watching on Facebook, because Facebook is affiliated with Instagram, Facebook, I couldn't put it up. Now I can. Instagram, it's up there, and you'll see my new Linktree profile. And you will see that now you can see all of the links. And there's also a gift in there for you if you're listening and watching. So if you go to the top of my Instagram page, you'll be able to see it. Also on Facebook, you'll be able to see this link as well. So now we have all of these links that you can do. So you will see the inflammation event. This will take you straight to register for that, to see me in person if you're from the Chicagoland area. You will also see the direct link to be able to register for the webinar. And as well, for the longest time, we couldn't put this up. I was so sad. But even too, guys, here's what's so cool is even our office, you can even go and order a t-shirt and have it printed on demand, and they'll send it to you and mail it to your house within about 2 weeks or so. So we have a lot of awesome t-shirts. And yes, we do have different colors, men's sizes, women's sizes, really awesome, like our squat t-shirt, mandate burpees t-shirt, a lot of different ones. Some of them may offend you a little bit, but that's okay as well. You have to have a little bit of a sense of humor. So you see where you can order your t-shirt on demand, and it will be shipped directly to your house. Now, I also included a free home workout book that requires very minimal equipment. So that way you can even be exercising according to your menstrual cycle and enjoy some really awesome workouts. There's about 70 or so that's in there. And yes, I've done every single one of them. And then I have people who reach out literally multiple times every single week. They're like, I need to work with a doctor. What do you recommend? Well, if you want to work with a Wellness Way doctor directly, and for some reason I can't, or you might be from a different part of the country, I have a link that goes to thewellnessway.com, and you can type in your zip code and you can find a Wellness Way doctor that's closest to you, or who can also possibly work with you remotely as well. So all the links are up. I promise you there's no adult content on there. Some of us really hate me or get so offended by what I have to say, which is fine as well, but don't lie about it. My goodness. Okay. So you can go and visit my new Linktree profile. I spent a lot of time working on that. So enjoy. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about hormones. Okay. This is true for all kinds of hormones, whether they're the hormones of hunger or whether they're male hormones, female type hormones, things like that. And the reason why I want to talk to you about this is because I had a consultation with a wonderful woman. This was last week, and you can tell she was just kind of irritated, and she got a little bit snippy, and she apologized during that consult. And she said this, I'm sorry for what I said. I'm just a little bit on edge. I think it has to do with my hormones. And this is how I always respond to people when they blame their hormones. Okay. Hormones will make you feel a certain way. Hunger hormones might make you feel hungry. Certain hormones, male or female hormones, may make you feel a certain way. But I also want you to remember this. You always have the final say. You will always have the final say. Even if a hormone shifts your mood in a certain direction, you can actually pause, take a step back and say, is that appropriate for me to say? The reason why you have a final say is because you're a human being and you're not an animal. An animal just will do whatever their hormones are telling them to do, but you're a human being. You are a higher being, I should say. And so you still do have the final say. So quit blaming your hormones for every problem that you have, or even for your sassy behavior, because you have the ability to step back and say, This is where it's guiding me towards, this is where it's pushing me towards, but I don't necessarily have to do that as well. So I want to ask you a question. Am I truly hungry? Am I truly hungry? And here's a good way in order to measure or to answer that question, am I truly hungry? And it's this. I want you to look down. If you are seated, go ahead and look down. If you can grab fat on your abdomen, or if you're standing up and you look down and you can't see your toes, you are truly not hungry. Okay. You're truly not hungry. Your hormones may tell you that you're hungry, but there's a difference between psychological and true physiological hunger. So, hunger can absolutely become a liar, and you have to understand why it can be if you understand the hormones of hunger. So let's talk about the hormones of hunger. And the two main ones I want to talk about are leptin and ghrelin. Leptin and ghrelin, two main hormones of hunger. Let's understand what they are, what leptin resistance is, and how they can work for you, or how they can actually at some point start to work against you. So let's go to the Cleveland Clinic and let's talk about leptin a little bit. Okay. What is leptin? That's what the Cleveland Clinic asks. Leptin is a hormone your adipose tissue, otherwise your known as your body fat, releases that helps your body maintain your normal weight on a long-term basis. It does this by regulating hunger, by providing the sensation of satiety, otherwise known as feeling full. Now, scientists didn't discover leptin until 1994, and there was a lot of things misconstrued with leptin because they thought leptin was this miracle weight loss hormone, and they found out, no, it's not. And then they discovered something known as leptin resistance, similar to things like insulin resistance and things like that. So they didn't discover this until 1994. Leptin's main function, what is the function of leptin? Leptin's main function is to help regulate the long-term balance between your body's food intake and energy expenditure. Leptin helps inhibit hunger and regulate energy balance so that your body doesn't trigger a hunger response when it doesn't need energy. Sounds like a pretty good hormone, okay? Leptin doesn't affect your hunger levels and food intake from meal to meal, but rather it acts to alter food intake and control energy expenditure over a longer period of time to help you maintain your normal weight. Leptin has a profound effect when you lose weight as your body fat, or otherwise known as your adipose tissue, decreases. Your leptin levels will also decrease, which signals your body to think that it might be starving. Okay. So as you lose body fat, not muscle, but body fat, leptin levels will start to go down. And therefore, that can have a role in how much energy expenditure that you have throughout the day, called your basal metabolic rate. So now you have to ask the question, well, what is leptin resistance? Because why are people who might be considered obese, why are they always hungry, or they're always eating all of the time, even though their body should be telling them you need to shut it off? So what is leptin resistance? If you have leptin resistance, your brain, specifically your hypothalamus, doesn't respond as it normally would to leptin. Since it's constantly stimulated by leptin, remember, it's made by your fat cells, you don't get the sensation of feeling full or satiated. This causes you to eat more, even though your body has enough in fat stores. So that leptin resistance actually can become a liar. This seeming lack of leptin and leptin resistance also causes your body to enter starvation mode. In an effort to save energy, your brain decreases your energy levels and makes you use fewer calories at rest. So it starts to affect your metabolism. Leptin resistance thus further contributes to obesity and causes additional weight gain in the form of fat storage due to stimulating hunger and decreasing your metabolism. Now, here's what's really interesting from the Cleveland Clinic. Scientists are currently working on developing medications that can treat leptin resistance. Oh, jeez. A medication for everything, a pill for every ill, and a lotion for every motion. It's just incredible that they're trying to develop a pill for literally everything. What are some of the symptoms of leptin resistance? The main symptoms of leptin resistance are constantly feeling hungry and increased food intake despite having adequate or excess amounts of body fat. Let me kind of do an aside here. If you look at doctors that deal with obesity medicine, they're really, really big into calling obesity some kind of disease. And really, what they should be calling it is they should be calling it severe leptin resistance and severe resistance to specific hormones and things like that, in which you don't know when to shut it on and shut it off. So now they're trying to develop drugs in order to try to manipulate that as well. And I'll go over with you some of them here in just a second. So I just went over leptin. Now, what is ghrelin from the Cleveland Clinic? Ghrelin is a hormone produced, very important, by your stomach. Often known as the hunger hormone, ghrelin has numerous functions in addition to telling your brain you're hungry. For example, ghrelin increases food intake and helps your body to store fat. What's the difference between ghrelin and leptin? Because remember, leptin's made by fat cells. Ghrelin is made by the stomach specifically. Ghrelin and leptin are two of many hormones that control your appetite and your fullness. They're involved in a vast network of pathways that regulate your body weight. Leptin decreases your appetite, especially if you are not leptin resistant, while ghrelin will actually increase. It will make you hungry. Ghrelin plays a short-term control. It plays a role in short-term control of appetite, while leptin controls long-term weight control. Okay. So I want you guys to think of this. Leptin is really kind of like your body's thermostat. Okay. So if you set a thermostat at 72 degrees, when it goes below, it's designed to kick in and get it back up to 72 degrees or down, depending on if it's heat or if it's air conditioning. But it's designed to keep the room at 72 degrees. So it's kind of like your thermostat. Now, people have leptin resistance. It's like their thermostat has just broken. And so they're really missing some of the hormone things at play that can help them control their body weight and their hunger and how full they're feeling from day to day. Now, if you have leptin resistance, then typically how you're going to feel is you're constantly going to be grazing and you really have lost the mechanism to be able to shut it off. That's the other thing. If you're talking about ghrelin, that's more of a short-term response, and I'll go over that in just a second. Now, you can be resistant to a lot of things. If you've ever heard of insulin resistance, if you have high amounts of certain hormones, then your body will no longer hear it. And this is why leptin resistance has to do with having high amounts of leptin that can only be caused by high amounts of body fat. And you've ignored the signals, and then your brain becomes resistant to leptin. And now your hunger starts to go out of control. It's the same thing with insulin resistance. That's why I have a big problem with GLP-1 agonists out there. And the reason why is because they're designed to have your pancreas secrete more insulin, which if you're already insulin resistant, it only is going to make the problem worse, which is why they say, yeah, you got to be on these medications for the rest of your life. So it's kind of like this, guys. It's like if you were and I have experience with this as well. If you're going to take a trip with young kids and you see this picture right here of young kids that are just doing whatever they want, having a field day in the back seat and yelling and screaming, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And pretty soon over time, you just tune out what your kids are saying. You just completely tune it out. And it's what your body does too in the presence of certain high amounts of hormones, things like insulin, things like leptin, that the body just starts to tune it out. And the receptors just start to get bowled over so that you can't respond appropriately to it anymore. And it's the same thing too that I'll talk about even when it comes to nicotine, because can you even become nicotine resistant? Well, of course you do. The reason why is this: no one ever starts smoking, and by smoking 2 packs a day, yet that's where a lot of people actually end up if they're not controlling it. So how do you overcome nicotine resistance? Well, you stop it and you go cold turkey and you let those receptors start to become more sensitive to it. How do you overcome insulin resistance? How do you overcome leptin resistance? Well, one of the things that you need to do is you need to decrease the amount of that hormone. Why do you think with insulin resistance, why we have talked about getting off of sugar and processed carbohydrates? That's why we had the meat and veggies only challenge. That's why you should be doing high intensity type of exercise. That's why in my link tree, there's a free book that you can download, and it's not a bunch of it's easy workouts that anybody can do, but they're high intensity. So that's one of the things that you can do in order to become more insulin sensitive. And how do you become more nicotine sensitive? Well, stop smoking. And then that one cigarette that never ever bothered you, now it's going to knock you on your butt because you haven't had it for such a long time, and the body's going to become more sensitive to it. Now, I want to go over with you a couple of labs so that you can kind of see this of what this is going to look like on the labs. Remember, leptin wasn't discovered until 1994, and all of the misconceptions that came with it, they thought that people didn't have enough leptin, and they thought that giving people more leptin was going to be the answer, but that truly wasn't the case. Here's some blood work from someone who came in, and you can see, if you look at this, the leptin levels in this patient were at 63. And then you even see that their insulin levels were at 60. Where do I like to see insulin levels at? I like to see them at about 3 to 5. That's where I like to see your insulin levels. I've measured it in myself, and about a year ago, my insulin levels were at like under 3. Okay. So her insulin levels were at 60, which is like you are massively insulin resistant, and leptin levels so high at 63. Well, obviously, there's got to be a high amount of body fat that this person has on their body. And then you look at their fasting glucose at 108, when in reality, it really should be at about 85. And then hemoglobin A1C was in the pre-diabetes range. Now, when we started doing some things in order to reverse this, yes, there are herbs. Yes, there's no doubt about it. Yes, decreasing stress, very important. But a lot of this is going to be lifestyle when it comes to the person. And you can see that her insulin levels went from 60 down to 15. Still a little bit of work, but a massive improvement. Then you see that her fasting glucose went from 108 down to 94. And then you look at her leptin levels, which were still high, still had a lot of work to do, went from 63 down to 34. And then on top of that, she was no longer pre-diabetic. And this was over the course of about 4 months or so. Now, this person had to put in a lot of work. And I will say this is for everybody, but it's not for every mindset. It's kind of like when I say, hey, you know what? You should be doing CrossFit at this point. And they're like, oh, it sounds really hard. And I'm like, it's for everybody, but it's not for every mindset. So you have to be in the right frame of mind in order to be able to accept certain recommendations that I'm actually making. So you can see that she got massively better. And this was all on her. This was just doing the right things and doing it long enough. This is why I have a reel today. If you guys don't follow me, I have a reel today about what are some of your muscle building hacks that you have. And I'm like, you know what the biggest hack is? Consistency over time. Consistency over time. And it's really the same with when it comes to weight loss too. It's doing the right things consistently and then giving it enough time. So same thing with building muscle is you have to do it consistently, you have to do it over time. And building muscle literally can take many years in order to develop, but people just give up because they want the results right away. Okay. So you can see on blood work, this actually gotten better. So let me talk to you about controlling your hunger. Okay. Controlling your hunger. Remember, go ahead and look down. If you're grabbing some fats and your fat on your abdomen and you're absolutely famished, then you're truly haven't experienced physiological hunger. It probably is a liar. So how do you control your hunger? I'm going to tell you something long-term. Long-term, one of the things to do if you want to control your hunger is lose body fat. Not weight, but body fat. See, I could go ahead and I can cut my arm off and all of a sudden I might be 15 pounds lighter, but that's not going to do anything to my hormone levels. So stop using the scale measuring. It's not how much you weigh, it's how much body fat you have. So you need to lose body fat. This is why when we take people through, we'll do an in-body pre, we'll do an in-body post, because we really want to see if body fat loss is actually happening. So long-term, you have to lose body fat in order to become more leptin sensitive. But what can you do short-term? And I will tell you this, short-term, you should eat more fat and more protein. You should eat more fat, more protein, because most people don't eat enough protein. Most people don't eat enough protein. And why do you need protein? You need protein for a lot of your peptide hormones, which are going to be things like insulin, thyroxine, Even your neurotransmitters are all protein-based hormones. Your sex hormones are more of a fat-based hormone. But the other reason why too, like short term, eating more fat and protein is because fat and protein, especially protein, takes longer to digest and it's going to stay in your stomach a longer period of time, which means it's going to stretch your stomach for a longer period of time. If your stomach is stretched, then you're not going to have that release of ghrelin. So it's going to help you control your hormone. You're going to feel fuller for a longer period of time. You know what's really interesting is that some people have so much stomach inflammation that their stomach is always swollen and they're like, I'm never hungry. And that's because their stomach is always swollen because it's there's something that's going on, and it's usually has to do with stress or there's an infection that's going on as well. But eat more fat and eat more protein. Please do that. It'll stay in your gastrointestinal system a longer amount of time. Now, GLP-1 agonists, because people ask me at least once a week, they're like, what do you think about Wegovy and Mounjaro and all these things in order to lose weight? And people go on saying, this is a miracle. It helped my food chatter. And I'm like, yeah, you know why it helped your food chatter? Because it manipulated your gastric emptying, which puts you, this is why people run into some problems with this, because it delays your gastric emptying, which made you less hungry. And then because your stomach was stretched for a longer period of time, it just made you eat less. Okay. Look at GLP-1 agonists. What do? They make you eat less. Look at gastric bypass. What do they force you to do? They force you to eat less. It's all that they do. So when people say it helped my food chatter, yes, that's probably because your leptin levels are going down and you're becoming more leptin sensitive as a result. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to say this, but doc, I get so tired and shaky and I get dizzy when I don't eat. And you know what your problem is? You probably have a big time fatty acid metabolism issue, and that's responsible for the liver. Okay. The liver is responsible for fatty acid metabolism. And if you are someone who's got to eat all the time, or your blood sugars are dipping down, you're having a problem, then you probably have a problem with your blood sugars. And on top of that, you also may have very low cortisol, which is responsible for mobilizing some of your sugars in order to try to elevate your blood sugars as well. No, you don't have adrenal fatigue. You probably have some massive inflammatory issue that's going on as well. By the way, your liver is responsible for fatty acid metabolism. And this is why some people, if they lack the enzymes to be able to break down fats, once we start to turn that on, they start rapidly losing fat. They don't feel very well. And the reason why is because toxins are stored in fat cells. And that's why when people are detoxing and we feed them the enzymes of what they need for the liver to start to process fats, this is why sometimes they don't feel very good, because toxicity is stored within the liver, or not in the liver, but within the fat cells. The liver doesn't store any toxins. Well, doc, what about bariatric surgery? Okay. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody who has had it, but I will actually tell you this. Bariatric surgery, because I know a lot of people have tried to do that, and I've also have seen a lot of people hurt by it. And my biggest thing is doc, first, do no harm. So different types of bariatric surgery. The most popular one is going to be the gastric sleeve. Also known as a sleeve gastrectomy. It's the most commonly performed bariatric surgery in the United States. The gastrectomy simply removes a large portion of your stomach, about 80% of it, leaving behind a small tubular portion, kind of like a sleeve. This naturally reduces the amount of food you can consume in one sitting and makes you fuller faster. See, they actually already admit that. They admit that it makes you fuller faster by shrinking down your stomach. So, but here's where I have a big problem with it is if you look at the surgery side effects, okay? Because remember, anytime that you manipulate anatomy, it's going to cause a problem with absorption of certain things. Remember, your stomach is responsible for the absorption of things like iron, and you need stomach acid in order to absorb some other things as well. So what are some of the surgery side effects? Number one, dumping syndrome. Number two, malabsorption and malnutrition. Many bariatric surgery procedures intentionally induce malabsorption in your small intestine to reduce the calories you can absorb. But if you aren't careful, your healthcare provider will prescribe nutritional supplements to help prevent this. Interesting, because the very same ones that if you recommend a nutritional supplement, they will castigate you for that, but they're doing the same thing. Some of these weight loss surgeons and things like that. So dumping syndrome, malabsorption, malnutrition, bioreflux, surgery that affects the pyloric valve, which it does, which is in the stomach. The opening between your stomach and your small intestines can cause it to malfunction. If the pyloric valve doesn't close properly, one possible result is bile reflux. This means that the bile that your gallbladder sends to your small intestine to help digest food can backwash into your stomach. Bile reflux can erode your stomach lining, leading to gastritis or inflammation of the stomach and also stomach ulcers. Interesting, huh? Also including gallstones. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of surgeons, when someone has a gastric bypass or they do some kind of gastric sleeve or something like that, there's different types of them. But a lot of times they'll just prophylactically remove the gallbladder. And the reason why is because gallstones are very common, not normal, very common after someone loses an incredible amount of weight. So rapid weight loss sends a large load of cholesterol to your liver to process. When your liver sends bile to your gallbladder, it carries extra cholesterol with it. The extra cholesterol can build up in your gallbladder, forming cholesterol gallstones. Gallstones don't always cause problems, but they can be dangerous if they travel and get stuck in your bile ducts. This is why if you have gallstones, you have to look at how big they actually are. Your healthcare provider may give you a prescription medication to prevent gallstones after a surgery, or they just may remove the gallbladder because I don't know, I guess you just don't need it, as well. Guys, you need every single one of your organs, okay? Now, what's the reason for rapid weight loss when you've had a gastrectomy, or if you've had, some kind of weight loss procedure? And the biggest reason is because you ate on average of 500 to 1,000 calories per day. Okay. That's all you can physically stomach, and probably had a lot of meal replacement shakes in that process. Now, I will also say this: very common for people to need a revision of any kind of gastric bypass surgery. And the reason why, they need a revision after 10 years or so, very common for people to need a revision, is because a gastric bypass procedure doesn't address the emotional aspect, the brain aspect of why you actually became obese in the first place. So it doesn't address the emotional aspect of food. Guys, food can become very emotional. And in fact, if you tell a person you can't have sugar for a whole entire month, they will become very emotional about it. This is why when we do food allergies, why we send it to them right away, because a lot of times if they're looking at their food allergy list, and I'm going over with them, it's the first time that they're looking at it, they'll become very emotional, and immediately they don't hear anything that I have to say after that. So why do people lose weight? Is because they cut themselves down to 500 to 1,000 calories per day. Why do people on GLP-1 agonists, why do they lose weight? They cut down how much they're eating because they can't get it out of their stomach fast enough, which is why we always say, hey, maybe instead of having the processed carbs that are going through your stomach very quickly, maybe have more protein that's going to stay in your stomach for a longer period of time, okay? Now, weight loss. I very rarely mention weight loss to people, or it's not the main thing, obviously, that we are doing. But here's the biggest thing when it comes to weight loss. And I will tell you this: you will not lose weight if you stay inflamed. I remember I had a guy, and one of the first things that we did is it was a phone consult. The first thing that I did, because he had some blood sugar issues, we put him on a no sugar diet. And lo and behold, in 1 month, he lost 25 pounds in 1 month. Well, what did we start to do? We started clearing out a lot of his sugars out of the liver, which a lot of water will go with that, which is why when people start avoiding their food allergies, they can lose a lot of weight. They get very concerned, like, is this going to keep going? No, it's not. Because a lot of the weight that you lose is a lot of water weight that's associated with inflammation. And that's not necessarily a bad thing as well, which is why the first thing that you have to eliminate, which is why we always talk about inflammation first, is you have to get rid of anything that's stimulating the immune response. And that can be food allergies, that can be a GI issue, Long-term stress can really damage the gastrointestinal system. Also, if you have some blood sugar issues as well. And then detox is more associated with straight fat loss, which is why we keep their protein levels up. But this has more to do with feeding the liver the proper things in order to be able to take fat and shuttle it to the liver and be able the liver to process it and metabolize that better. And this is why we do an in-body pre and post and make sure they're not losing any fat or muscle mass, which is why you have to keep your protein levels up. Now, once they handle some foundational things, we may do some retesting after that. But this is where I talk to people about like weight training, or hey, you got to make sure you're getting enough sleep. I'll talk to them even before that, because you cannot lose weight if you aren't sleeping enough. And even talk to them about conditioning, like doing some high intensity exercise interval training, which is what I have in my book, my workout book. Make sure you download that on Linktree. But it is amazing when someone comes in and they're like, I want to lose weight. And I'm like, they go through this whole process. I'm like, okay, great. Join a CrossFit gym now. And then they hem and they haw because they know it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And I'm like, it's all difficult. Life is tough. Choose your tough. Life is hard. Choose your hard. And I would rather consciously choosing something hard with my own will than to make life force me to have a hard life, because I just refuse to do the hard things. And that's why I say all of this is supported by lifestyle, which is why we say this, is to say, I don't want you on a bunch of things, but if you choose to continue to be sassy, then yes, you're going to need to be on a bunch of things. And in fact, the best day in the world, like I had an individual who came in today, he's taking 3 things. One of them is some liver and then some potassium, and something else I can't remember off the top of my head. That's because he's getting everything through his food. And that's what we want people to do, is get it through your food, which is part of your lifestyle. All of this is very, very important. Lifestyle, like your exercise, very important, which is why if you see here on my new Linktree is that you can download a book. Please do that right away before I pull it off. Home workouts with minimal equipment. There's about 70 workouts in there. I've done every single one of them. And yes, they are hard, but again, choose your hard. Okay. Now, if I can talk to the men, man up. All right. Man up. You can do this. I believe in you. You can do this, but download that. Please download that book and save that book. If it's no longer on here, don't ask for it if it gets taken down. Okay. So lots of workouts. So I want you to think of this. I lost weight doing gastric bypass. Congratulations, you ate less. I lost weight on a GLP-1 agonist. Congratulations, it forced you to eat less. And if you lose your results, then you started doing something different that you weren't supposed to. And if you lose your results, then chances are you probably ate more and you started to be a little bit sassy with that as well. Okay. So this is why if someone falls off track, they're like, oh my gosh, doc, I got to call you. I need to get back on track. And you know what I'll tell them? I say, okay, tell me what changed. Usually it's stress that forces that doesn't force them to get off track. They still choose to. And I say, what do you think you need to do? They're like, I need to get back on track. Well, how would you do that? Well, I should do this, this, and this. I'm like, congratulations. You just paid me $300 to tell you what you already knew, but you just needed me to confirm that with you. Okay. And this is why there's so many revisions that need to happen, especially when it comes to gastric bypass, is because people lose their results. And the reason why is because you can't deny the emotional aspect of food. So is food your drug of choice? For a lot of people, it actually is. So is hunger, can it be a liar? The answer is yes, 100% it can. Especially the more fat that you have, the more that you're going to become leptin resistant, and the more you're going to have a big time problem paying attention to those hunger cues. And this is why when someone says, hey, just eat if you're hungry, but you need to drink water if you're not thirsty, I'm like, actually, you probably have it backwards. Thirst is a lot better indicator than hunger can be, especially. Okay. So can hunger become a liar? The answer is yes, 100%. Are you getting tested? And are you working with the proper people that can understand that and can guide you into the right direction? Guys, if you like this video, please make sure that you share this video, tag someone that you know that you love who could benefit from this video. And guys, give me a topic for next week, please. I'll scroll through to see any questions that people had, and maybe that'll be my topic for next week. I was actually thinking about yeast and Crohn's disease. Maybe that will be the topic that we will do, but let me know if you have a topic. Let me know what it is in the comments below. So guys, I love all of you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Really, so many people watching online from all different areas. I'm humbled. I really am. And I appreciate all of the kind words that you say, and even the not so kind words that you say, because you're the ones who keep me going, who drive me to keep going. So guys,